Michael, Jason, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, I can.
excellent. Glad y'all made it today. Okay, we've already called the meeting to order. We'll start with the,
Just to let you know, they're both on.
Yeah,
Behind you.
we-
yeah, I was just making sure they could hear us. Okay, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and the Texas flags. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, we'll start with our roll call. Melody Green,
Here.
Floyd Olive,
Here.
Tommy Duncan, here. Jason Pohl,
Here.
Veronica Uriegas,
Here.
Corey Harris, Michael Anastasio,
Here.
and Stacy Johnson.
Here.
All right, moving on to item number 3, meeting minutes from April 3rd, 2024. Those meeting minutes have been posted on the website. Is there any public comment on that? Anyone else have any comment on the meeting minutes? Okay. Can we get a motion to accept?
I move that these meeting minutes get approved.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Item number 4. Sunset update. As many of you are aware, the Sunset Committee came out with their findings on bingo recently. A lot in that. Do we have any public comment on the Sunset report? If you would come up front. Mr. Bresnan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this on?
Yes, sir.
Is it still on since I'm messing with
sir.
the button up here? Okay, good. That damn table's not wide enough to get that away from me. So I'm Steve Bresnan. I'm here on behalf of the Bingo Interest Group. And I'd like to comment about Sunset Report. I want to start by saying I've worked many, many times with Sunset Commission and their staff. I have the greatest respect for the process, for the people in it, and the work they do. I think at the same time, when I met with Sunset staff, I had the feeling that they were a mule looking at a new gate. Bingo's different, and it's complicated, and it has a history. And so some of the features of bingo regulation are historical, and that may not come across to people who haven't been involved as long as some of us have. And I think some of those historical roots were missed. I don't fault people too much for that, for not being elderly like me, but but I think they missed some things and didn't have a view from outside the agency as part of the regulated community. And so I think some things were missed. I'll get a little more specific, but the first thing I want to do is talk about the issue of engagement. That was seemed like a theme throughout the report, that they didn't feel like the commissioners were engaged enough. Well, if you've been here for a while, you know that this is the golden era of commissioner engagement and staff engagement with people in the regulated community, bingo issues in general. There was a day when bingo regulation was an afterthought and an irritation. And I think those days are gone. They went by the wayside some time ago, but the culture of engagement with bingo has been retained over time. I don't know how anybody could request a greater engagement than Commissioner Fields has had with charitable bingo. She's been here. She's been attending. I know there's lots of communication with staff. We've had communication with her. We've had private briefing meeting with her and staff, various groups, and so I just think I think that's just wrong. What happens on the lottery side of the shop, I don't tend to comment about. I don't know anything about that. So my comments are reserved to the board's engagement with charitable bingo. I think the fact that there's been discussion about a public member on the BAC and how should it be properly constituted and all that is evidence of the commission's engagement with charitable bingo. So I just think that missed the mark. Related to that is the recommendation that the current system whereby the charitable bingo operations director reports directly to the commission, that's going in the opposite direction. If you want greater commission engagement, to put a buffer between them and the folks in charitable bingo. So that, to me, that didn't follow. There was a historic reason for that. Some of y'all, I'm about to tell you what you already know. I apologize for that, but we're creating a record. There was a time when there was a rampant and I would say justified reason amongst people in the regulated community that felt like their competitor, the lottery, was regulating them to their disadvantage in the marketplace. And I think that was, I think it was certainly a real feeling that people had. We asked the legislature to set up this system, and the legislature responded. And I know of nobody in the legislature in that time who has had a bad experience as a result of that or thinks there was anything wrong with it. Is it different? It's not common amongst state agencies. We could probably find some things that are analogous, but the fact that it's different is no reason to put your thumbs down on it. And I think it's worked real well. I'm unable to discern that this creates any additional work for the commissioners themselves or for the staff. I think it puts us on every agenda with the people who are responsible, making reports and keeping the commissioners up to date. I feel like it gives us access to someone who's actually focused on on the industry and knowledgeable about it. No knock to the executive director of the commission, whoever they are at any given time. I know we've got a new one now. I don't fault them in any way. I'm just saying that if you want the agency and the commissioners to be more engaged, this is one way to do it, and making a recommendation to undo that is not consistent with that proposal. To hit a few more details of the report. On page 10 of the report, if you give me just a second, let me pull that up. There's a chart about where the money goes in bingo. The bingo interest group raised in its comments regarding the staff report. We questioned the accuracy of this chart. If you notice, as we all know, the biggest part of of where the money goes is prizes, but they have the prize fees separated out as separate items from prizes. And as we all know, the prize fees are deducted from prizes. So it would seem to me that either they've already sorted that out, and so the prizes awarded is reduced as a result, and maybe the chart's accurate and it needs some kind of a footnote or something to account for that. we filed our comments some time ago. I've not heard anything from the commission Sunset staff yet, where that explains either, oops, we got that wrong, or that there should have been an explanatory note there. But if that's the case, it understates by about $30 million prizes awarded. And because they have those at 1% and 2% of the total, I suspect that that distribution is wrong on this chart and should be corrected. One of the reasons that I'm highlighting that is they've made some suggestions that are sort of state agency speak for costs that are being borne on the lottery side that are being to the benefit of the bingo side of the shop. The legal services, probably personnel, some things like that are coming out of the lottery side of the budget. This has been discussed a number of times over the years by the legislature. And I'd be honest about it, I don't know if it's compliant with the Lottery Act or not, to do that. But I make this point. They don't say how to straighten it out. The implication is that, or one implication would be that there be more fees. We asked the legislature to get rid of the licensing fees because bingo produces more than a sufficient amount of money, probably about 5 times just for the state of what's necessary to regulate bingo. So we don't want this staff report to be taken by the legislature that they need to be generating revenue over on the bingo side of the shop in order to replace those costs that may be being borne on the lottery side. The lottery will have to speak for itself on that and the staff. But my sense of it is that the sun has continued to rise in the morning and go down in the evening under this particular arrangement. If there's a fiscal or other reason to change it, then that's fine, as long as that money either comes out of the state's take from the prize fee or the local government's prize fee or both. Frankly, I don't think there should be a prize fee. I don't really think it's even a constitutional thing for them to do. 3 more quick things. Thank you for putting up with the length of my comments, since I may not get a chance to make this lengthy tomorrow. There is no doubt that the technology budget of the bingo side of the agency needs to be beefed well up. I think it'll improve compliance, efficiency, confusion, mistakes, etc. If the agency has a robust and flexible capability to meet the regulated community's needs in that regard. So we fully support that aspect of the report. We also support that aspect of the report that the BAC should be mandatory. Probably not necessary in the current environment, but we all know that environments change over time, and there was a time where there was no BAC, that they made a conscious decision not to. As I recall, there was a lame excuse that we hadn't been strong enough against 8-liners or something at the time. But that bottom line is we have a BAC. It's been reconstituted. The agency's paid good attention to it, and it doesn't seem to me to be too cumbersome. And then finally, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these, but finally, the issue of licensing manufacturers and distributors is one that caught my attention. I understand, and there's a general attitude to simplify licensing structures. Occupational regulation is a big deal, particularly on the right end of the political spectrum these days, and well-deserved attention to be paid to. But I fail to see then how eventually, if not immediately, that the sorts of things that are protected by the 3-tiered system would not fall down into the lap of the conducting charities. How do you know, unless you've got Tommy Duncan's shop sending you product and he's got a license at issue that could be revoked and affect him from operating in other states if his license got revoked, how would the conductor know if product looked like approved product, but it came through some other channel to them. How do you know that it's if it's not manufactured properly and the serial numbers are messed up or whatever? How do you know who to go back to? And what do you do if it is? And what does the agency do if it is? How do you do your auditing? You could put a serial number in there, but if there's no way to track it. So it seems to me that all of those questions would need to be answered before there was unilateral disarmament in the licensure of manufacturers and distributors. Again, I don't see a particular evil that's being addressed there. And it's certainly not an uncommon structure in regulation to have separation between the kinds of entities. Now, as an aside, there may need to be some attention paid to enforcing the actual separation between the actors in the system, but that's a different issue. And really, finally, I want to talk about the lessor arrangement. The report completely ignores the existence of association lessors. And so it's not comprehensive with regard to the lessor issue. They didn't come down with a recommendation as to what to do. I'm going to refer to regular lessors and grandfathered lessors. They basically said either make them all one or make them all the other. This is another historic result that came about in 1989. I'm not seeing the evil. I understand from the outside, you might look at it and see one group of people is advantaged or disadvantaged from the other. But also there was no discussion about what the economic consequences are if you leave the same rent structure in place and lift that bifurcation. What impact would it have on the industry? Since 1989, I'm venturing to guess it's a lot more expensive to provide a building in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Bexar County, et cetera area, maybe not so dramatic in Abilene. And so the failure to account for those kinds of things and have some idea of what the impact would be on charitable bingo, I think is a serious shortcoming. And it's asking legislators to choose between two things and not telling them what the hell is going to happen if one or the other is selected. So for that reason, we have a lot of concerns about this report. I'm going to give a truncated explanation of that tomorrow to the commissioners, if so allowed. And when the actual Sunset Commission meets, we will give our report to them as well along the lines of what I'm saying. We don't know when that commission's going to meet. We've been hearing somewhere in the second or third week of September. But some of the members on the House side were defeated in their recent election. There's a bunch of vacancies on the Senate side of that. Whether those are going to be filled and when, I don't, somebody probably knows, but it ain't me. And so the staff over there, I think, needs the guidance from the legislators. We will work those legislators strongly around the issues that I've expressed. Thank you for letting me take more than a little bit of time to explain our views about this report.
Thank you, Steve. Well said. Tom Stewart.
For the record, I'm Tom Stewart, Executive Director for Texas Charity Advocates. As most of you know, our organization represents all facets of the charitable bingo industry. We have charity conductors, we have lessors, we have manufacturers, we have distributors that are all a part of TCA. I'll start out by saying that probably 90% of what Mr. Bresnan just said, we would agree with, particularly on the issue of engagement. We've found that that the commission itself, Chairman Rivera, Commissioner Fields, the other commissioners have been accessible and open and available to us, the staff as well, the good working relationship in the 6 or 7 years that I've been a part of TCA and working on those issues. We also responded, the board of TCA met, discussed the key items and recommendations made by the Sunset staff. And we responded in written form, a letter that I think has been widely circulated, but I'll cover some of the highlights here. Obviously, there's some issues that we agree with, some that we disagree with, some that we're relatively neutral on, but we do have a point of view about. We certainly agree that modifying the statute to require the bingo advisory committee and improve its effectiveness is a solid recommendation by the staff, and we've got some suggestions and ways, one of which I'll talk about here in a minute, that can help the BAC improve its effectiveness and utility, I think, going forward. Obviously, anything that can be done to prioritize IT and modernizing the bingo division, we think is a good idea, and then improve its data practices and data validation and other quality controls. We think those are good recommendations, and obviously we certainly agree that the commission should be renewed for another 12 years, including the bingo division. Where we disagree is on the issues of the organizational hierarchy, eliminating the licenses for manufacturers and distributors, and then we have issues with changing the grandfathered and lessor licensees as well. We think that the current hierarchy works well, and to Mr. President's point, is a move away from additional engagement. Should the Sunset Commission decide to go that way, it just doesn't square with one of the key themes that came out of the Sunset staff's recommendations. With regard to the licenses for manufacturers and distributors of bingo materials, the bottom line is that shifts the regulatory risk onto the backs of charity conductors. And our point of view is very strong that that is not a direction that we need to head. Anything that places a further burden, particularly the regulatory risk and the financial risk that brings, would be a huge step in the wrong direction. And then with regard to the grandfathered licenses, I'd simply say the state wrote these rules in 1989, and people have been following these rules since that time. To suddenly and quickly change those rules and how they're written and how they're promulgated, again, is a step in the wrong direction and destroys value that's been created since 1989. And we just don't think that's the proper direction. We're neutral regarding the issue on the budget and how that's handled. However, I'd reiterate, I think, the point that Mr. President made, which is if you do that, the resources to replace what bingo division currently has in sort of a shared services situation with the lottery side of the business, whatever additional resources, they need to come from somebody else's pocket. It shouldn't come from the licensee's pocket, regardless of who they are, whether it's a lessor, manufacturer, charity conductor, or a distributor. There's plenty of revenue that lottery produces in those prize fees to cover those costs, and it shouldn't be borne, especially shouldn't be borne by the charity conductors themselves. The last thing that I'll mention is something that really wasn't covered at all in Sunset staff's report. The mission of the charitable bingo division is to be the regulatory cop on the beat. That's all it's ever been, and that's fine. That's a proper role that it should be. But we're all very well aware of the trend in charitable bingo in terms of attendance. It's falling. We know because of market research that Texas Charity Advocates has conducted and other things that we've done on our own initiative, that it's a very simple problem. It's an awareness problem. We compete with so much out there in terms of entertainment, in terms of people who like to take a chance in the hope that they might get a few bucks back to put into their pocket, including lottery. We compete with so much that charitable bingo, going to a bingo hall is not top of mind when they think of, oh, what do I want to do Friday night or Saturday night? That can be addressed through an awareness campaign. And one of the things that I would encourage this committee to do in its work plan next year is to look at other jurisdictions and other places that have charitable bingo. What have they done to help and to promote charitable bingo to increase attendance? I think that would be an excellent research, possibly a subcommittee that could be established by the Bingo Advisory Committee to look at how we might actually do that. We've test marketed with the help of financial resources of our members. We've test marketed. We've shown results. We show that we can drive people into bingo halls. We can track them. We know fundamentally what works, and we can take some clues from what our friends on the lottery side do in terms of promoting awareness of their products. That can be applied to charitable bingo as well. What we haven't figured out what to do or how to do it is to scale it for a state the size of Texas and the diversity of markets that we have, small rural markets, suburban markets, in major urban areas. The issue is scale, and the issue is resources. And we think that that's something that the Sunset staff missed. We hope that we'll have some open minds and open hearts when we talk to the Sunset Commission itself, when they finally meet on these issues. We hope that we can come up with a way that we can ultimately propose to the legislature itself that creates some type of public-private partnership so that we could begin to attack this issue of awareness, stem the tide of declines in attendance, and ultimately reverse that. That's a multi-year process that requires a lot of resources, and we need help. And I think this committee should look at it. I think Sunset should look at it. I think the legislature should look at it. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions for Tom or Steve? Thank you all very much. We appreciate that. Does anyone else want to comment on the current item we're on? No. I'd just like to say real quick that I'm only going to comment on the engagement part of the Sunset Report. I personally, and I'm not speaking for anyone on the board or the board itself, I'm speaking for myself. I have personally felt like that the engagement from not only Commissioner Fields, but the staff has been exemplary, and it has been far beyond what we have ever dreamed we could get from the staff and the commissioners. Commissioner Fields is at almost, I think she's only missed one meeting in years, which is incredible for us to experience. I know that I personally speak to LaDonna about every week about something or another. So when you come to the meetings and you see a short meeting, that doesn't mean that we're just passing stuff through. That means that all the work was done before the meetings to talk about and iron out the problems, to go over the, whether it be a rule review or it be a proposed rule change or something like that. There's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes that we're definitely engaging in. And Tyler's been a big help on that as well. So in my mind, engagement has been a plus. So thank y'all very much for that. We definitely recognize that.
I think we all agree on that.
Yes, sir. All right. Any other discussion on that item? Excellent. We'll move on to item number 5, the rules review. So the first part of that is the subcommittee on rules review. We had our rules review meeting before the last BAC meeting, and there was some work to be done on the rules review. I know Tyler's been pretty busy with Sunset and a million other things, but we got the updated rules back from staff Monday, I think it was. Yeah.
Yesterday, actually.
Yesterday? Okay, yesterday. So we will definitely probably be having another rules review meeting pretty soon. I know, Tyler, you're going to comment on this pretty well. And if you need to, we can go through, maybe the highlights or something. We don't have to go through the whole thing today. I know nobody's had a chance to really look at it. So Tyler, you, sir.
Sure. So the big news is that in light of all of the sunset recommendations, and this goes on both the lottery and the bingo side, we've got a lot of rule stuff to do to incorporate their recommendations. So we've decided to push the entire rule review process back. We're looking at October now. So everything was proposed last December. So we have until December to close it. You have 1 year once you publish it. So the idea now is to close the rule review process in October, and then most likely to propose the rule amendments at that same time, which means that we could possibly adopt them, the rule amendments in December, or probably more likely February, given how many changes are involved here. So yesterday, I sent out what is the most current draft version of the staff's rule package. This incorporates all the changes that Sunset recommended. It incorporates many of the things that we discussed at the subcommittee meeting, and some things that weren't included based on discussions with Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Fields, and the audit division. And again, it's just a draft, so none of this is set in stone. There's going to be plenty of time to talk about it. We just wanted to get something out to you guys so you could consider it in the meantime. Some of the sunset recommendations, they wanted a definition of premises. Premises is defined in the BEA already, and we haven't had any issues with what a premises is or isn't in a very, very long time. Nonetheless, Sunset wants it, so I put it in there under the definitions. I included the definition of premises. Also, there are some other odd references in the BEA to what a premises is, including it needs to have an address, and it's under a common roof or over a common foundation. And then I went ahead and threw in there that a premises does not include a virtual location or place, just to add on. We've got in this whole package, there's a couple new references to, the general principle bingo must be conducted in physical reality, right? It can't be done on social media. So that's just one more latch on there. And let's see. So they want the prohibition of credit payments. We put out an advisory opinion in 2017 stating that credit card payments were not allowed under the BEA for 2 reasons. One of which is that you need to have all your funds deposited within 3 days. So there's just kind of a functional impossibility of using credit. But then also historically, politically, there's a strong aversion to allowing the use of credit in any gambling business. The lottery is required by law to use only debit or cash. The BEA does allow debit cards, and so there was an argument in this BAO that because the legislature explicitly allowed the use of debit cards, but at that time they didn't take the liberty to add credit cards, they must have therefore not intended, or rather should have intended not to allow credit card payments. So we've got a provision in there that prohibits credit card payments, and also this has come up in some enforcement cases, is when if you allow, say, PayPal, you're allowed to use a PayPal debit payment. That's fine. But PayPal also offers credit services. And so we've also tried to prohibit any type of credit payment, not just on a physical card. So you can use PayPal, you can use Venmo as long as it's a debit cash-based transaction. But we've seen this in certain instances where it's hard for us to tell whether or not it's a credit or debit based transaction. So we're just making it clear that credit transactions are not allowed. Sunset asked for a rule explaining how you transfer a grandfathered lessor license. And this is a bit of a misnomer because you don't transfer a grandfathered lessor license. We have a rule that talks about how when you do, in fact, transfer, a true transfer of a license means one entity giving it to another. And when you do that, it loses the grandfathered rights. What we see and what Sunset heard about and what I think they're actually speaking about is that when a grandfathered lessor license is held by a corporate entity or any other entity that's not a sole individual owner, this is just Texas corporate law, you can change the owners of that corporate entity 1 million times and it's still the same corporate entity. And so the license is never transferred. It's still owned by the same corporate entity, even if all the people are completely different from the ones who held that license 30 years ago. And that's just the way the law is. We've got an AG opinion on it that talks about it. So I think that's what they wanted. And so I've got the rule in there saying that it's, when a license is held by a corporate entity and those corporate officers or owners change, that does not constitute the transfer of a license. So it's phrased in the negative, so that the license, and we're going to base it on the tax ID. This comes up once in a while. Steve's got one with us right now where they want to change their name. In Texas corporate law, you can change the name of an entity and still retain the same taxpayer ID. So that's the person that we're going to use for the purposes of retaining a grandfather license is the Secretary of State taxpayer ID. So everything else can change, and that can keep its grandfathered rights. They wanted to add compliance history to audit risk factors, so we put that in there. They wanted to eliminate warnings for all serious offenses and for all repeat offenses. So I've gone in there and changed that, and we were in fact doing that. The first two categories of offenses are the most serious, and those always came with a minimum of, I believe, a $250 or a $100 penalty. So we were never issuing warnings on there, but the chart did say that it was a possibility. And then I've gone in there for every second and third offense, no matter how severe or not severe it is, I've eliminated the possibility of a warning and put in some, minimal fine in its place. They also asked us to define repeat offense. This is another one where we've got a rule that says that a repeat offense is a previous violation that occurs again within 36 months. I added another sentence on there to make it real clear that it's the same violation that's been repeated within 36 months. So that's in there. Let's see other things. We've had some issues with the standard of a receipt based on a postmark. So different documents had different standards of when they were deemed to be filed or paid for prize fees or waiver requests. They were kind of all over the place. So what I've done is eliminated all the different references to when a thing is received, and I basically copied and pasted the rule from the comptroller's office, which states in general that everything is based on the postmark. But to be clear, that's only if we actually receive it. If we don't ever receive your document, your proof of delivery is still based on that postmark. So you should take a picture of it. We always recommend certified mail. You get a copy of it. If you use FedEx or UPS or whatever, you get an electronic version of it. But this way, at least it's clear. The date that a form, a report, a license application, or a payment was filed or made will be the postmark date on the package that's sent. And that's the standard the comptroller uses for billions of dollars in taxes. So that should work for us. In discussions with the commissioners, I think based on the discussion of from the Sunset Commission, we decided not to allow executive session for BAC. The recommendation is that everything be discussed in public so that there not be anything hidden. After considering the initial draft of the rules allowed the BAC meetings to be held virtually or at any other physical location in the state of Texas, we realized staff has to set these things up. We don't have a travel budget. We don't have the ability to set up a meeting in Amarillo or even Round Rock probably. So we've reduced this down to virtual meetings are allowed. We can always do a virtual meeting anywhere, anytime, or any state office building in Austin. So we've taken some things out of there. This was a request from a subcommittee that if we receive a complaint about a legal bingo, that we issue a cease and desist letter and send a copy to local law enforcement. We've been doing that for a long time, but we're happy to put that in the rule. There's also a grammatical suggestion to add a comma in one of the provisions by Mr. Bresnan, and I've thrown that in there to make it clear that there are two separate things and not one conjunctive thing. There's a cleanup in the disciplinary qualification section. There's a reference to a criminal statute that doesn't exist that a legal assistant noticed a couple weeks ago. And then some of the things you guys requested, changes to the game schedule record keeping, the inventory record keeping, and the gift certificate record keeping. And based on the discussion with auditors, we've decided not to change any of those. They feel that all those record keeping provisions are necessary in order to correctly audit the trail of money and the trail of products in bingo. And that's that. There were, three things that came up in that discussion last time. There was online gift certificates. There was the elimination of the 65% pull tab prize structure, and then there was a discussion of kind of a minimum price structure for card minders. All those things, in my opinion, are perfectly legal, but they're all very controversial, as you can tell by the discussions we had in here. Although I think everyone in here wants online gift certificates, but as staff, just throwing the word online out there in anything is not a very good look. So we are not going to include any of those things in the staff version. But as the Steves will tell you, anyone in the industry is free to request a rulemaking on any of those issues or any other issue at any time you want. And that, I think, would properly place these kind of controversial policy decisions onto the commissioners, who are the political decision makers in this agency. And again, I think all of those things are legal. I don't see any reason to prohibit them legally, but these are, I think, very big policy decisions that, the staff doesn't necessarily want to voice support for or non-support for or anything like that. So you guys are free to ask for them. We're free to discuss them in here amongst, the BAC, and the BAC can take a position on it. But we've decided that the rule review process is mostly a cleanup process, not a Christmas tree, as some folks say. But as you know, you can always ask for anything you want at any commission meeting. Steve knows how to propose or request a rule proposal very well. So that's that. And again, this is just a draft. It was thrown together pretty quick in the last couple of weeks. So I don't think any of this, even this new language, I think that the old language from the last meeting seems pretty well established. Since I did a rough draft, we said in here, we talked about it, I edited it. I think that stuff's pretty well agreed upon. But all these new things, they can change, and we have a long time to change them, because now we're going to be waiting until October before this gets forward. So, we'll have a meeting in August. Maybe that might be a good opportunity for another subcommittee meeting, or at the very least, a thorough BAC review of these. But I think I've addressed everything, all the concerns of the sunset, all the internal staff concerns. If something pops up over the summer, some random enforcement thing that we need to address, we might add that in there. But at this point, I think this should be pretty much it.
Thank you, Tyler. LaDonna, just a question for you real quick. Since we did this through a subcommittee, would you like for us to schedule that subcommittee meeting the day before the next BAC meeting? Or do you want to get back to us?
I'm going to have to get back to you. But it would help to know if you all are available, that would help.
Okay.
I mean, if
All right.
I go to all the trouble to figure it out and then somebody's not
when-
available.
So I'll skip an item here too. I don't remember the date you had for the next meeting.
For the August meeting?
Yes.
I've got August 7th. Yeah. So
That's,
presumably the BAC meeting would be on the 6th, a Tuesday, and then the subcommittee would be the.
It'll be a Tuesday.
So the 6th is a BAC meeting, 7th is commission.
I think so. The 6th, it's not on my calendar yet as the BAC meeting. But yeah, one thing you could consider is knock them out on the same day, right? You have the subcommittee meeting in the morning and then maybe the BAC in the afternoon. But that all depends on room availability and all that. But yeah, right now I don't have anything for the BAC meeting because you would announce it until today, right? You would, at the end of this meeting, you would plan the next one. So it's not on there yet. But the commission meeting is on the 7th.
Okay. If we do it all in one day, the only concern I would have is giving us enough time to digest everything to
Vote on it.
vote on it the next day. There may be some issues that I don't know, depending on what the split time would be on that.
Yeah, this is totally your call. That was just a random suggestion for me. So
Sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate the suggestion. I do.
It could be the day
It would
before.
still
Think
give
so.
you another meeting. That would just be the August meeting. According to the schedule that Tyler just gave us, the proposal wouldn't go to the commission until October. So it would still give you another 2 months
right.
before we actually needed to speak to the commissioners about, take a position on it. If that was what you were talking
I
about.
guess, do we have to have the public meeting? Is that what we're doing for the subcommittee?
You don't have to do anything. So when it gets proposed in October, though, the commissioners will expect Trace to report on the BAC's position on the proposed rules. So whatever it takes for you guys to be comfortable to make that recommendation one way or another in October is what we need here. So if you need a subcommittee meeting to do that, that's fine. If you don't, you don't. And yeah, so that'll be in October.
So we wouldn't have to have a recommendation from the BAC until October. We would do that the day before
Correct.
the commission meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Well, yeah, then I think we would have plenty of time to do it all in the same day if that's what everybody wants to do. I'm game either way.
I'm good either way.
Yeah. So we could have the rules subcommittee in the morning and then maybe after lunch have the BAC meeting. I think that would be wonderful.
Yes.
On the 6th.
I don't think it should take long. He went over a lot of it.
Yeah, there's not much
Yeah.
much new stuff, and so much of it's sunset. I mean, I don't know how much room we really have to haggle over
Gotcha.
what sunset's telling us we need to do. So
Okay. LaDonna, is that all right with you to try to do that?
Let me just confirm we've got the room.
Excellent.
I'll get back to you during our weekly phone call.
Yes. All right, wonderful. Okay, any public comment from the on the rules review? Tom Stewart? We can't hear you and we have people online. Sorry, bud. Nope, you're good?
Steve Bresnan on behalf of the Bingo Interest Group. I think what Tyler just outlined is the kind of engagement that we were praising before. As a lobbyist, we look for Christmas trees. But we take that as a warning, but I will say it's like Christmas in June that I got my Oxford comma. Very important Supreme Court cases have been
Comma is not
decided
optional.
based on an Oxford comma. So
Yes.
I really appreciate that. And I can't tell you how gratified I am and how much my high school English teacher
you can
would appreciate
put it on your
it.
refrigerator when it gets
Absolutely.
adopted.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comment on the rules review? All right.
Chairman.
Mr. Fenolio.
For the record, my name is Stephen Fenolio. I'm an officer of Texas Charity Advocates, and I've also litigated with the agent. And the one concern, there are others that I'll file in writing, but it has to do with the penalty matrix. And what I have seen on many occasions and in the rule review, if you'll give me a moment, I'll get to that page, has been not knowing violations, but in the category of I transposed a number or I forgot. And it starts on page 126 of Tyler's work product. And it's an incredible work product, Tyler, that you did, by the way. And so in the standard administrative penalty chart, we're talking about 16 TAC 402.706 paren C. Violation number 2, a person made a false statement on an application in a license. That happens. People make mistakes. What it should have, and this goes back to over 10 years ago when these rules, maybe 15 or 20, were being drafted, we talked about knowing violations as opposed to I misspelled someone's name is an example that has happened. Well, that's a false statement. It's not knowing false statement, but it happens. The same is true for a person falsified or made false entries in books and records. You transpose a number. You forget to add a daily cash report if you're a bookkeeper for multiple halls, and it happens toward the end of the quarter where they're trying to get all of their data loaded into a quarterly report. It's not a knowing violation, it's an unknowing violation. And so it doesn't have that. If it's just, well, there's a false record, we got you. It's a minimum $250 payment. The first time it ever happened. And the same is true for 4. A person conducted, promoted, or administered bingo without a license. We've had situations where they had a temp, but for whatever reason, in a unit, Hall Charity 1 filed for the temp, but Charity 3 unknowingly was conducting bingo on that temp license. There was a license, but it wasn't a knowing violation. They used it for a different charity. Similarly, the category 4 on 128, the organization or unit deposited funds other than the conduct of bingo in the bingo account. Again, it's just if you did it intentionally, I get it. But if you did it unknowingly, why do you automatically have a $100 fine?
I have a question. So about 25 years ago or so, that happened. The charities deposited in the wrong account and we got audited for that time period. And I spoke with the auditor at the time. His name was BJ. I do not remember his last name. Do you guys remember BJ?
I do.
Remember BJ? Such a nice man. So he said he made a notation and I said, finally did it. And he said, I'm going to make a note. It was here. So I don't know who gets to make that call or how that's done now, if that happens, because it was just human error. And he said you write a check from one to the other and make a notation. So that's how that was corrected. I don't know how that's handled these days, but that did happen. And I don't know. It goes back to it was at the discretion of the auditor at the time. So I don't know if there's something in writing to address issues that like you're discussing.
Well, under the penalty matrix, based on what the Sunset staff wants, you would have to pay the penalty. And there are charity, I use this as unit to compound matters even further. There are bingo halls that don't use a unit. And so it could be where, again, Charity 1 filed for the temps, but it turned out that Charity 3 in that hall used that temp unknowingly. They thought they had one. Another one on page 130, not a large violation, category 7, starts on page 129. The organization failed to obtain, maintain, keep current, and make available for review to any person upon request a copy of the Bingo Enabling Act and the rules of the commission. There's not a knowing violation. It just you didn't do it. Well, 3 examples. 1, they had the last version they thought they had of the rules. It wasn't the updated rules. Again, it doesn't say a knowing violation. It's a violation. You pay a penalty. these are funds from charities that are going to be used for nonprofit activities. So it seems to me that there should be the discretion not to have an automatic monetary penalty where auditors, for good or bad, are just looking and checking, okay, you didn't do this, that's a monetary penalty. You didn't do this, that's I know you didn't intend to do it, but you did it, so pay up. And that affects the charity's bottom line. Occasionally a charity says, well, we didn't knowingly violate it. We're going to hire a lawyer, pay legal fees, and work out a matter, including whether you properly mailed and sent a renewal application or quarterly report to the organization, and the Postal Service screwed it up unquestionably, and that charitable organization has to pay a lot in legal fees to get their results. So people make mistakes, is my point. We've all made mistakes. At one point, I thought I was going to be a CPA until I learned in cost accounting, the third year of accounting, that I'm dyslexic with numbers. And if you give me a telephone number and I don't repeat it back to you, there's about a 70% chance I'm going to transpose one of those numbers. Even if you're not dyslexic, that happens. And so it seems to me Sunset staff is off when they say you have to have a monetary penalty for each and every violation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Steve?
Thank you.
I have a question, Tyler,
Sure.
about that kind of stuff. You mentioned that the recommendations from Sunset played a big part in what you do for your rule review. Just a dumb question here. If Sunset recommends that you do that, are you bound to do that, or is it
No.
They're
Just recommendations, and of course, these are just the recommendations from the staff report. These aren't necessarily the final recommendations of the Sunset Commission itself. But the idea is that we want to get out in front of all these things so that we can tell the Sunset Commissioners that we're already incorporating, as many of the changes as possible. I will say one thing about Steve's recommendation. One thing I can do, the problem with making everything a knowing based violation is that we can never prove that. If you tell us I didn't know I did it, well, that's the end of that enforcement case. Knowing is a standard for criminal law that applies in situations where we're going to throw you in jail for the rest of your life. So that's why that burden exists there. One thing I can do though is I can take these violations that are in category 1 and 2, and I can break them out. I can have a knowing violation of that law, which again we will never be able to prove, can be a category 1 offense, and a non-intentional violation of that law can be in a different category where the first option is still a warning.
like for transposition of numbers or a misspelling of a number.
Sure.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah. And then that way we can
Gotcha.
we can still issue warnings for what appear to be, simple unintentional mistakes.
Sure. A
Gotcha.
situation where a deposit was made in one charity instead of the other, that's clear. The money's there.
Sure.
It's not like it disappeared or something. So
Exactly.
that's clear.
So many deposit
Sure.
slips sitting here.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other comments on the rule review? Moving on to item number 6, the annual work plan. You should have all received a email or a copy of the annual work plan. Let me stress right off the bat that this is a draft. This is not the final product. In the past, we have looked at and voted on the annual work plan and the annual report in one meeting and presented it to the commissioners the very next meeting without the commissioners being able to look at it. It's also been a very short process time for staff as well. So that's kind of why we're trying to get this done in 2 meetings instead of 1. That way staff has a heads up, and also the commissioners as well. So there are some edits, I think, that we'll be needing to make to not only the work plan but the annual report. So if LaDonna, do you want to talk about the annual work plan, or Tyler, do you have any comments on that so far?
I've not had a chance to look at it closely, sorry.
Anyone else on the work plan?
I did not receive that work plan.
Pardon?
You didn't receive the
This is
email.
Mike. I didn't receive that email.
Okay, I'll make sure to resend that to you. We're not going to vote on this today. This is just draft work, so I'll make sure you get that and let you look over that. Tom Stewart.
This is Tom Stewart with Texas Charity Advocates again. I'd reiterate something that I said earlier. I would hope that in the work plan, y'all would consider looking at ways in which this committee can make recommendations on some sort of public-private partnership that is designed to promote the game of bingo in the state of Texas among consumers. The other thing, given the rules discussion that just had and the 3 items that Tyler mentioned at the end, the prize percentage prize payout for pull tabs, the selling gift certificates online, and establishing some sort of minimum price structure for handhelds. It might be something that you might want to consider including in your work plan. Again, creating subcommittees to look at those issues and with the ultimate goal of making a recommendation to the commission to start a rulemaking procedure. I think that's a perfect use of the BAC to look at. Is that a direction that we ought to head? And so by including that in the work plan, that gives you the opportunity to consider those issues. So just a suggestion as you work through the finalizing the work plan.
Okay, thank you. LaDonna, just real quick on the work plan and the annual report. We will plan on voting on sending these to the commissioners at our next meeting.
That sounds good.
That satisfy every requirement and all that? Yep.
That will, that means you can, okay, so you'll vote on it, you'll make the recommendation the next day. It won't be the recommended version. There won't be a recommended version in the commissioner's notebook.
So we need to wrap this up before that.
If you want something in the commissioner's notebooks.
I think that would be very helpful for the commissioners. I think they would appreciate that. Okay, so we may have to do some email votes or something like that, which we're allowed to do without having a full-on meeting.
You're allowed to meet outside of this structure, but I think it's like for you to take a formal action as a BAC, then I think you would need a BAC meeting, and you could have a virtual meeting to approve. So you can pass this thing back and forward and have email discussions or discussions at the bar or whatever you want. But in order for the BAC to formally approve some version of this to be passed on to the commissioners, then you would need a meeting. But again, I think we can have a virtual one, and we need it 2 weeks? 2 weeks before the commission meeting in August, so that it can be uploaded to their file.
Okay.
Or I think it's 10 days. The agenda gets posted 2 weeks in advance, and then they want files 10 days. Right.
Agenda for the commission meeting.
You
Now I'm
can
thinking
need that
about the
mid-July.
virtual BAC meeting.
Yeah, do a virtual meeting.
Would right after the 4th of July work for you? Maybe.
Be that following week.
Yeah.
Or just a virtual meeting?
Well, if it's a meeting, it needs, I was just talking to Tyler about getting an agenda posted even for the virtual meeting, and when that would be. So let's see, the 4th of July is a Thursday. So the week after that?
Yeah, if we do it maybe that Monday or that Tuesday.
That's good.
Does that sound good with everybody? Just a virtual?
8th or 9th?
8th or 9th? Yes.
I'm good either day.
And unless there's some dire need, we would only put 2 things on that virtual agenda. which would be the work plan and the annual report. Unless there's some dire need for something else.
That's Monday, July 8th.
I'm good. I think everybody's good with that.
Yes, I'm definitely good with that.
Okay.
You wrote it? The agenda that we did.
You have a time preference on that? Do you want to do morning or afternoon, LaDonna?
My day's wide open on the 8th.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. okay with everybody?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And then once we vote on that, it would go into the commissioner's packets, correct?
I can get it to the, yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so they need it 10 days before the meeting in August. So you're looking at the very end of July.
Okay. Excellent.
July 30th, Dorota tells me.
So July 8th is plenty of time for him to get that in there.
Yes. Excellent. Okay, good.
For the materials or for the
On
agenda?
the agenda.
Any other comment on the annual work plan? Any public comment? Okay, moving on to the next item, BAC annual report. I do have some notes on that. So I was given some notes that the first part of the annual report, the section where it quotes the government code, that doesn't actually, that's not exactly what we need to be putting there. We probably should cite to 2001.057 and the annual work plan, which is item 8. Recite that. Then on gross receipts, there's a correction we need to use. Instead of 894 million, it would be 897.5. And keep in mind the annual report is a rough draft as well, so it's a working document. And then that last line under gross receipts 2021, it needs to be changed to 2024. Just typo stuff. A lot of this was just put together, rounding numbers off. So, but I think we need to be a lot more specific on this going forward. Adjusted gross, change 197 million to 197.9, and then change the percentage of the increase there. Under net proceeds, that last line of that first paragraph, change it to 28.7 million instead of 28.5. And then change those two percentages in that next line. Going on to charitable distributions, the second paragraph, the single line where it says XX million, put the actual number in there and then change the 27.9 million to 29.3 million. And then on expenses, we'll need to adjust those numbers in that paragraph there to reflect the correct amount. Under attendance, we need to change 10.8 to 10 and 10.1 to 10.2 million, and then correct the 44% drop there in the last line, correct that percentage. There's a typo on the fourth paragraph down, fourth line, where it says charitable bingo needs to consider some kind. It says time, it should say kind. And then under the website review, kind of determine whether we're talking about the website or the BSP. Sometimes when we're in these meetings, we talk about the website. Sometimes we talk about the BSP, and we've been asked to clarify which one exactly we're talking about. And that's just some of the quick notes that we have. Are there any other corrections that anybody else saw or wants to add to or take away from? Okay, so I would like to take this time to personally thank Tom Stewart at Texas Charity Advocates for helping with this. Tom does most of the heavy lifting on these two reports. Tom, I really thank you for helping with this. You've really taken a big load off. So we appreciate your efforts, and we're looking forward to working with you some more on these.
Tom Stewart with Texas Charity Advocates. I just have to admit that it's possible that I sent you the wrong draft.
Oh,
And I'm always happy to help and support the work of this group at any point in time. But as I was looking through documents on my computer, they were scattered all about. And so I might not have been working from last year's version to update for this year's version. So it's very possible that part of the reason why some of those numbers are wrong and the percentages are wrong is I sent you the wrong draft. So I apologize for that. And we'll make sure we get that corrected.
Tom, those are very simple corrections, and I know that you helped churn this out in a very quick pace to help make sure that the commissioners are in the loop on this. The body of this is excellent. Just some small typos that we need to correct. That's all. So we couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much, Tom. Any other comments on the annual report? Okay. Any public comment on the annual report? Moving on to item number 8, fiscal year 2025 Bingo Advisory Committee nominations update. So at the last commission meeting, the commissioners decided to open up the nominations process for all seats on the BAC. And after some conversations with some of my colleagues up here, LaDonna, Tyler, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. If you need to get back to us, that's okay. We don't mind. But if you could you tell us what's expected of us to go through this process this time? Because in the past, we were tasked with reviewing the nominee forms that we received from staff and selecting a single nomination to recommend to the commissioners, which we did. We don't do the background checks or anything. That's all for staff to do. So we only have the ones that are cleared. But I guess if you'll explain that process to us, one of the main questions that I've received is, do we nominate ourselves that are already on the board? We're kind of at a conundrum here of there's not really any open seats on the BACs. How would we proceed with this, if you understand my...
Sure. So I'll give you the rule. The rule says that the BAC may be a resource to the commission by reviewing nominations, interviewing prospective members, and submitting its recommendations to the commissioners for consideration. However, the BAC will not act to exclude nominees. So my recommendation is, because it says the BAC may be a resource to the commissioners, I would ask them tomorrow what they would like you guys to do. maybe in light
Thanks,
of
Tyler.
of the situation,
Right.
that they just want to leave you guys completely out of it. I don't know. But yeah, I would ask them, so they can, if they want you to interview each other and make recommendations on yourselves, then they can ask you to do that. Or if they don't want you to be involved in it, they can tell you that as well.
Okay. So I guess that's what we'll do tomorrow. Commissioner Fields, do you want to weigh in on this or maybe think about it? Okay. All right. Commissioner Fields said she would think about it. All right. Don't want to put anybody on the hot seat. Okay. So real quick, we'll go through the BAC nominees. BAC members
Trace?
currently on the BAC have the,
Trace?
yes, ma'am.
Before you do that, can I give you all a little summary about the process so far?
Yes, ma'am.
So on May 6th, we sent an email blast to everybody that's in BOSS, which is 14 or 15,000 people. A day or so after that, you informed me that not all your members received it, and I realized they're not necessarily in BOSS. And so I sent it to the BAC also. I did some additional outreach with some help from my colleagues with Texas Municipal League, Texas Association of Counties, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. Steve, what was the name of the
Texas
Catholic Bishops? I keep getting that one confused. I'm sorry, but colleagues, help from my colleagues. Thank you very much. I did all that research. All that outreach also to hope to get us a public member for the 2025 BAC. We have been sending you the applications forms for those that have passed the eligibility criteria. You've got 13 so far. You don't have all of them. If there are more that pass the criteria, I will send them along to you, or I'll have them sent to you. And at the point where I realize you have them all, I will let you know. You should have, everybody on the dais should have a packet of all 13 hard copies of those applications, and then a little spreadsheet that I thought might be helpful.
Thank you very much for that spreadsheet, by the way. That's been great.
To see the interest groups that everybody has requested. You can see that we have at least one person for each interest group, and some of them we have several. So that I just wanted to give you that background.
Excellent.
Summary.
Thank you very much. So everybody has the applications that have been submitted in your packet. I would urge all the members of the BAC to guard those packets carefully. There is personal and sensitive information in those that is not for public release. Obviously, the names are public, correct? We can make public the names, right? Okay. So the names can be public, but the data on the nomination forms needs to be confidential, kept between the BAC members and the staff. So I'm just going to real quick. I've sent some of the applications out to people. I did not resend the applications for current members out because I think we're all familiar with each other pretty well, what we do and how we do it. But you now have a printout of those. So I'm just going to go down the spreadsheet here just so everybody is aware. I would urge each of you to reach out on your own unless we want to form a subcommittee, which we can. If we want to form a subcommittee, we can do that and have the subcommittee reach out to the nominees that have passed background check. If not, we can leave it to each one of us.
Should we wait till after you find out what the commissioners want us to do? How do you want to handle that?
I think we have to do our due diligence and do the interviews. Would you agree with LaDonna, Tyler?
I think you're free to, I think you should like form this subcommittee today while we're all here and then see what they say tomorrow. If they tell you tomorrow they don't want you involved in it at all, then we just don't do anything. But at least that way you've got the subcommittee formed. If they do tell you tomorrow, yes, please call these guys and tell us what you think, then you've formed that subcommittee here today. So,
Okay.
and then you can start working on it.
Okay.
Excuse me, in the past, Kim and I had taken the list and separated it, and each did some interviews over the phone. So I can do some of that if somebody wants to help me.
Yeah, I'd be glad to help with that. Does anybody else want to jump in on that to help? No? Okay. Yeah, Melody? Okay. So subcommittee will be Veronica and Melody and I. Another question. If the commissioners instruct us tomorrow to do the interviews, to vet them, should we go ahead and give our recommendation at the next BAC meeting that we had scheduled for the July the 8th on the Teams meeting?
I think you could do it in August. So August will be the commission meeting when all these folks are appointed. And then, so they'll ask for the BACs or if they want your input, they'll ask for your talk at the August commission meeting. They would expect you to say the BAC voted yesterday to recommend the following people.
Okay.
So I don't think you need to handle this at the special BAC meeting in July. This
Okay.
can be done at the August one before the commission meeting.
Okay. All right. That'll work. All right. Any public comment on the nominations? If not, we'll go on to item 9, old business. Any public comment? If not, we'll go on to item number 10, new business.
Yeah, Tommy Duncan with the distributors. I'd like to make a motion that the commission is going to look at a bingo advisory commission opinion tomorrow. And if they agree with staff, we would like, the staff to send that while they post it on the website, go ahead and send it to all the lessors and charities they have emails for, if that's possible.
Yes, well, the plan would be to issue the BAO over the same email blast,
Okay.
the 15,000 names.
Right. Right.
All right,
Okay.
go. That's all I have.
Okay. So
So you got a motion. So you either second the motion or withdraw the motion.
well, do we need to do that since that's already the status quo?
I don't think so. But
There you go.
Okay.
you got a motion. So
Withdraw that.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
She's already going to do it.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. No other new business? Any public comment? All right. We already have, let's move on to item 11, date for the next meeting. We will have a Teams meeting July the 8th at 10 a.m. To discuss the annual work plan and the annual report. And then we will have the August BAC meeting on the 6th with the commission meeting on the 7th.
So I have been able to confirm that on August 6th, we do have this room all day. So you can schedule your rules review meeting and the BAC meeting. Do you want to talk about times right now?
Sure.
Yeah.
10 a.m. for the
Rules.
review.
Yeah, 10 to 12.
10 to 12, and then take a break.
What time do you want to come back, LaDonna, for the BAC meeting? 2?
2:00? Will that
Give you a couple
that
hours
give you
for
enough
lunch.
time to have a meeting and lunch?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so. Okay. Any other comments, LaDonna? We all good on that? Yep. Okay. All right. This meeting is adjourned at 11:26. Thank you for coming.